Despite huge leaps in technology, the modern surveyor doesn't look all that different from those pioneering surveyors who banded together 100 years ago to form the Surveyors Institution of New South Wales, while there was still a wilderness to map and record. Modern surveyors had a chance to look at the equipment of their forefathers at a centennial display in Newcastle today. Raymond Terrace man Philip Atkinson is to be inducted as the New South Wales Architects Institution President in Sydney on Thursday. He and fellow architect of 30 years, Lord Mayor John McNaughton, reflected on the importance of surveyors to Australia's development. Mr Atkinson says their early journeys told us much about our country.
Yes, the surveyors were involved with opening up the countryside. They were keeping a record of all the flora and fauna and the type of country which they put on their notes when they did the surveys as well, which helped to take back information to the early colony.
Examples of the surveyor's profession included early soundings of Newcastle Harbour and the first subdivisions at Dudley shortly after the turn of the century. Modern satellite information is refining the surveyor's mapping skills, and it won't be long before the shortest of journeys is carried out using that technology.
I can see that in the future you may be able to get into a taxi and give him the coordinates of your block of land, and he'll be able to map out the best way to get there and take you home.
The occasion was the annual Hunter 2000 luncheon, a chance to raise funds for the Newcastle Youth Service. But it was also a chance to meet 3 successful businesswomen who have combined career, family and roles as politicians' wives. Senator Flo Bielke-Peterson has raised 4 children. She's the proud grandmother of 10 and has an impressive parliamentary career.
I was in New Zealand on my honeymoon and I got an invitation to go and open a fete. And I said, what'll I do? And Joe said to me, oh, Florence, you go. And of course, I never stopped going from that day to this one. But it stood me in good stead when I became finally a senator in my own right.
Also successful in juggling home and work is Carolyn Hewson, director of an investment banking firm.
Family comes first, and around that you do the very best job you can. There will be times that you can't give both sides or all 3 sides 100%, but it is a juggle, and if you have, as Helena says, that good communication and you're keeping the family together, you can do almost anything.
And that, in Helena Carr's case, means high-powered jobs in marketing and economics, including turning one company around from near disaster to financial success. They all agree that Australia still has a long way to go in providing better support for supportive women.
I don't necessarily think it has to be at a government level, and I'd like to see it at a workplace level, where you and I and other women who do have a voice encourage at the workplace level, employers to put in childcare centres or to encourage for flexible working hours. Not necessarily to work less hours, but more flexible working hours.
Glenn Shorrock classifies himself as a former pop star but a never-say-die performer. He started his singing career in 1961, leading to world prominence in the late 70s in the Little River Band. The evergreen artist is now turning his hand to musical theatre with a show called Go Cat Go at West's Leagues in April, a collection of impersonations of rock and roll greats.
Basically, I'm just a fun-loving ham, you know, that likes dressing up in women's clothing.
Each year, Shorrock meets up with the Little River Band and tours Europe and America. Royalty checks from his hits such as Cool Change and Help Is On Its Way are still coming in. And Glenn says he'll be happy to keep singing those hits till he drops.
I'll be mumbling those songs to the fish, I think, mumbling on a beach in Fiji. That'll be... I have this image of myself with a parrot on my shoulder and a hip flask in the back going, help was on its way, you know.
While genuine gemstones may be out of reach, Paris is grabbing as many fakes as it can. Chanel's Karl Lagerfeld and Saint Laurent took the limelight, adorning their collections with a lavish array of opulent Baroque jewellery. While sequins shimmer for nighttime glamour, inspiration comes from Bonnie, Scotland for winter warmth. Tartans and plaids paraded a more conservative look from Emmanuel Ungaro and Oscar de la Renta. Though many designers opted for longer length skirts, there was still plenty of opportunity to show off a shapely leg, even under the layers of winter woolies.
It's no longer a surprise to anyone here in Britain that Australian dancers are world class. More proof this week as Lisa Pavane and Stephen Heathcote arrived at Covent Garden for starring roles at the Royal Opera House. Principal dancers with the Australian Ballet, they've been brought here by the Sadler's Wells Company, now renamed the Birmingham Royal Ballet, for one special performance of Swan Lake. Stephen will dance as Prince Siegfried with Lisa opposite, dancing the key parts of Odette and Odile. On a stage graced by Dame Margot Fontaine, these two Australians will have the limelight, but with the glamour comes the work. They've had a week to prepare, including hours spent perfecting their moves.
Somehow too, when you're coming out of there, I feel like you're having to push yourself away with the arm. I'm not sure whether you need to.
Every day they take time alone, practicing over and over.
Well, Sergeant, have you identified the victim?
Well, we've been given a name for the man. We believe he's a British citizen. We're endeavouring to contact his relatives at this stage, but we've been told the person's name, yes.
Was he a resident in this area at the time?
We believe he's been living up here for about 3 months, before that in Sydney, and we believe he's been in Australia for about 8 months.
Well, where do your inquiries go from here?
Well, at this stage we're just about to go to the post-mortem examination, and from there we'll continue from there until we establish the cause of death. We've got an open mind at this stage.
Off the port of Newcastle, 9 coal ships wait patiently for their turn to load. It was confirmed today by the Port Authority that some ships are waiting 5 or 6 days to come into the harbour simply because there is no coal ready to be loaded. Yesterday, a committee of Hunter Council said they'd had enough of State Rail inefficiencies, calling for action from Premier Greiner.
And it seems ridiculous that lack of planning, lack of foresight has created this problem.
While the rail links from the Hunter to the port are controlled by the Newcastle State Rail Office, coal manager Gary Jones was not allowed to speak with NBN. All comments could come only from Sydney. Head Office objected to claims of inefficiency. Admitting some coal ships were forced to wait, Freight Chief Terry Kearney said it was due to an unexpected doubling of ships coming in. However, the Port Authority said numbers are up, but only slightly. Privately, state rail workers admit haulage rates are hopelessly behind. Management has called in extra wagons from the south coast. Wheat wagons are being converted to try and soak up the load. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Martial artists of all levels converged on Newcastle for the Hunter Valley Championships. Tiny tots taking their first steps along the road to a black belt were often flanked by the sort of people who'll never have a grain of sand kicked in their faces. Of course, an opponent's foot is quite okay. Tonight's exhibition will feature some of Australia's best, and the highlight promises to be a risky stunt involving swords, watermelons placed on a volunteer's stomach, and no margin for error.
That'll be done blindfolded, which is a lot of skill. He's using his inner senses, whereas the average person only knows to use their 5 outer senses. He's going to bring in his inner senses, which there are 5 of also.
How much comfort is that for the person on the bottom?
He offered me the part and I said, no thank you.
I'm only a pastor on the Wednesday.
Yeah.
You just got to do lots of suckers, get stitches in your head without local.
Tony Kemp kept his critics at bay with horror for the Knights as hard-working second rower Paul Marquette went down in agony, and he was carried off with a suspected broken ankle. Hero turned villain Steve Linane was sent to the sin bin for 10 after a professional foul. Mackay again converted, and it was 12-8 in favour of the Knights at half-time. Ambulances converged on the Gwendolyn Aquatic Club, treating patients on the scene. The cruiser burst into flames at around 11:30 after the Kelly family boarded their 25-foot wooden cabin cruiser, fueled up and hit the ignition button on the inboard motor.
It just exploded and threw everyone to the side of the boat, and then there was flames everywhere and everyone tried to jump out.
The blazing vessel drifted with the current to ignite another cruiser moored nearby.
You just can't understand why somebody wasn't killed with such a blast. Well, we lived 3 streets back and it just shook the house.
Firefighters fought desperately to douse the flames, fearing another explosion as the second craft was carrying 100 litres of fuel. Both cruisers were destroyed, the total value $50,000. 5 people were taken to Wyong Hospital, a 33-year-old Gwendolyn woman suffering serious burns to her legs. And at Waratah, severe fire damage to an unoccupied fibro weatherboard house. 4 units were called to the blaze at 2 o'clock, but the flames had already gutted the building. Worried electrical wires could come down, police cordoned off the area. The fire was extinguished within 2 hours. Peter Ryan, NBN News. Homicide detectives have ordered a statewide alert for the two Newcastle people who they believe are well known to the murder victim.
We believe the people were in the Swansea area about 6 a.m. this morning, and their whereabouts at the moment we don't know, but hopefully we'll find them soon.
Dominic Paul Gerard Manson's body was caught in fishing nets off Poolbar Island, weighted down with bricks. Detectives are looking for a 30-year-old male, 180 centimetres tall, with a solid build and short black hair. Also a 19-year-old woman, 164 centimetres tall, with medium build. Her hair was apparently once blonde, but police believe it's been recently dyed black. Detective Sergeant Lance Chaffey said today, police now know what happened. He believes it's just a matter of wrapping it up. Detectives are also looking for a 1980 Suzuki two-door hatch sedan, which they believe the couple is driving. It's an iridescent blue colour with New South Wales number plates LFH 762. The car was last seen in the area of Lake Macquarie Yacht Club.
Early on, it was all the Kiwis as their triples combination raced away from the lacklustre Aussies to record a comfortable 24-12 win. The pairs was just as exciting as yesterday's draw, but the New Zealanders staged a late comeback to take the game 2018 and put the pressure squarely on the Australians. Rob Perella responded magnificently against Bellis in the singles. He was another comfortable winner, 25 shots to 14. Australia needed victory in the fours to keep the series alive, but the Kiwis were obviously keen to wrap things up. They always looked likely to run away with the game, but some dogged fighting by the locals kept things tight until the closing stages. With 2 to play, it was all even at 17 apiece, but the Kiwis looked set to score heavily. Ian Schuback just failed with this rescue attempt. Trevor Morris didn't. With Australia up by 2, Schuback played what looked to be the winning bowl. The visitors had one final chance to clinch the series.
Speaking to Newcastle's business community today, Mr Lowton said Australia's economic recovery lies in the hands of small business and that the Hunter's strong industrial base will make it a leader as the country works toward a brighter future.
20 workers in the print shop social club are each $63,000 richer after dividing up the $1,260,000 proceeds from their state lottery ticket win. The news was greeted with shock and excitement, even a few tears. For most, the social club lottery ticket entry was a regular part of life at the shop.
Yeah, there's a couple that have been here from the word go. There's a couple that have only joined in the last couple of months, but that's what it's all about. That's what a social club's for. So, fantastic.
Most employees say the money will go towards house payments. Celebrations were due to start at lunchtime, just as soon as the important jobs for the day were under control.
The Volkswagen Combi was pulling out of Chatham Road onto Glebe Road when it clipped the front of a bus. The impact sent it spinning. It mounted the footpath, crashed through a fence and into the front of a house. The shaken occupants of the vehicle escaped with only minor injuries. But it was pure luck that saved the accident from becoming a tragedy. Just minutes before, almost 10 children were waiting on the footpath for their school bus.
All the kids sit here, all the school kids catching the school bus. What happened 10 minutes earlier, they would all been run over. A whole lot of them.
The house was only slightly damaged.